Have you ever read a recipe for a sweet, sugary dish that calls for adding salt and thought, why would you do that? Or maybe you've just wondered, what's the big deal with salt in cooking in general? Well, by the end of this video, you'll have all the answers. Hello and welcome to I Want to Cook. My name is Chef Matt and this channel is all about helping you be a better cook. And yes, today we are talking about salt, specifically the rationale for using it in cooking, even in sweet dishes where it might seem counterintuitive, from oatmeal in the morning to cookies for dessert. Now, it's actually not unusual for salt to be called for in recipes, including sweet ones. In fact, it's kind of the norm. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, I can understand using salt in soup, but why the brownies for dessert? Well, here's the key takeaway. We use salt in sweet dishes for the same reason that we use salt in any dish, and that is to enhance flavor. Think of salt as a culinary magnifying glass. Whether the dish is savory or sweet, salt simply enhances flavor. It just makes the food taste better. Without salt, food just tastes bland. I really can't stress how important it is to know how to properly salt food. It's one of the first things you learn in culinary school, the proper seasoning. And whether you're a Michelin star chef or a college student just learning to cook, knowing how to use the right amount of this will make a vast difference in the food that you make. When you hear a critic say that food isn't properly seasoned, one of the biggest components of that is just salt. The other major component is pepper. And I've done a whole other video that you might want to check out on pepper, white pepper versus black pepper specifically, and I'll link that in the description below. Now, how do you know how much of this stuff to use? Well, if you're just learning how to cook, follow the recipe. And if the recipe doesn't specify, well, you just need to experiment. Try adding a little bit at a time and tasting the food as you go along. Again, this is called seasoning, and this is absolutely fundamental to cooking. Now, I should note here that if you are on a salt-restricted diet or you're watching your sodium intake, well, it goes without saying, follow your doctor's orders, not mine or anybody else who's trying to help you learn how to cook. Now, most of the time when we're talking about using salt in sweet dishes, we're going to be using something like this, common table salt. But there are special cases where you would use a coarser kosher salt like this, or even something like these salt flakes. Now, one of the best examples of this is a fine piece of chocolate, like these salted chocolate caramels. You can actually see big pieces of kosher salt on the outside. That's intentional and delicious. Here again, that salt is enhancing the flavor. It's also providing an awesome contrast. You have the sweetness of the sugar in the chocolate with that bite, that slight sourness of the salt. And it's one of those culinary ironies that is just delicious. It's a really cool balance. And in this case, that kosher salt is also doing something else. It's actually providing texture. The salt grains are so big that you actually crunch into them. So in addition to enhancing flavor, using a larger salt crystal like this is also going to provide that nice crunchy texture. It's just awesome. It's like a culinary win-win. So that's a quick primer on salt and why we use it, even in sweet dishes where it may seem a little bit odd at first. So experiment with salt in your next recipe, and if a recipe does not call for a specific amount, remember, it's always good to add a little bit at a time. It's much easier to add more later than it is if you've gone overboard and you've added too much. Then you just have like a salty mess and your soup might taste like seawater. As always, thanks for watching. My name is Chef Matt. This is I Want to Cook. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Welcome to my kitchen. I am so glad that you're here. As always, if you have any questions or requests for recipes, put those in the comments below and maybe I'll get to them on a future episode. Until next time, I hope that you want to cook. Now, about those salted chocolates, excuse me.